Good. Good. Thanks, everybody. Again, we do appreciate you taking the time, your money, and investing in such a cause. There's a lot of things you could do tonight, but you're here, and that's important. I wrote a few notes to talk about, but I don't know. I don't feel like I'm going to read all that right now. I came with props, as you notice. I brought my own stuff. Can I get my picture up here? I want to make fun of myself. There you go. So when you see a picture like this, and you're all going to relate, I know you are. I remind you, when you see a picture of yourself, now for those taking notes, that picture was taken in a hotel lobby in Calgary about 2 years ago. And as I look at that now, I'm reminded that it's nature's way of reminding us that we all will turn into a version of our parents. And I look up there, and I didn't know Dad was speaking tonight. But I'm also reminded, and Dad, I know you're watching from home, so weren't you very handsome at my age? So I'll take it. I'll put on my glasses because I don't see as well as I used to. So I'm going to tell you a brief story. This is a tough story to tell every time I tell it, but I do believe it's an important one to tell. So this one starts July 15th, 2022. It was a Friday. I got up in my condo in downtown St. John's, and I was getting ready for work. I was making a cup of coffee like I did. My son was just across the way on the couch where he fell asleep the night before. And, of course, he stirred as I made my way around the kitchen. We made a bit of small talk, like you would. And then he, of course, was turned over to go back to sleep because it was a bit too early for him yet. As I headed out the door, as I always did, I said, all right, call me when you get up. I always said that. I didn't need to say that. He called me without fail every time. And so, like you would, I kind of backed to the door. See you later. Call me when you get up. Love you. Love you too. Off he went. About an hour later, it was actually exactly 8:35 a.m. My phone rang. Of course, it was Zach. And we chatted. Again, small talk. You have any breakfast? There's food in the fridge. We did this. So it was as normal as a Friday morning could start. Within just a couple of minutes of our conversation, I will say one thing was a little bit different, is that he had been sober for almost 2 weeks, which was the first time in about 6 years he had dealt with substance use disorder, and he was struggling. So he was doing really well, and I was so proud of him. I remember as we talked, I felt so hopeful, and you could hear that voice coming around and all the things. I know a lot of you are very familiar with what I'm talking about. And he was doing so good. And so we chatted about that and how you doing. And I used to leave him notes of encouragement on the table. Of course, did you read your note this morning? Because I was always hoping he'd read it and felt a positive influence from it. And so we chatted about those types of things. Then he said something that made my heart sink. He said, I'm going over to a friend's house. Now, he did name that friend. I knew what that meant. That was not a place where he needed to go. Those who have dealt with this world will know a common phrase that is used is people, places, and things. Well, this was people and places and things to a T. This is where he shouldn't go. I had also learned over the many years of learning to deal with a loved one in active addiction is that try as we may, and I assure you I did, we can't control the decisions of others. And boy, but yet, knowing what I knew, I still tried. So I tried to convince him different, and I told him about how well he was doing and reminded him that, we're already applied for rehab, and we don't want to set that off the rails. They always told us it's going to be 8, 10, 12 weeks. Let's not do something now that sets us back even further. I mean, you're so close to getting the professional help you need. And so I tried. We bantered back and forth, and I tried. I didn't succeed. So, begrudgingly, I hung up the phone, of course, and said, okay, well, call me later, I guess. And I think he must have sensed that little bit of worry in my voice, a little bit extra. That I said, okay, love you. And instead of just saying, love you too, which would have been the norm, he took an extra second and said, I'll be fine, Dad. I love you too. That was the last time we ever spoke. Around 2 o'clock the next day, 2 police officers sat at the same dining room table. And I'll never forget, as I sat with them, and I remember I held the rehabilitation paperwork in my hand, and I said, just 6 weeks. That's all we needed. 6 more. And we had them. 6 more. He died waiting for help. Now, I know for a lot of you, telling a story like that is a little close to home. A lot of you here are scared. A lot of you have dealt with this. A lot of you are trying to live beyond. I get it. And we all do what we can to work with that. I wrote some books, and I do things like this. And I try to support my community where I can. But I wanted to remind you of something, is that even when we don't succeed, there are others coming right behind that need what we learned from that. So what you're doing here right now is changing lives. And that's not dramatic. It really is. There are people getting help today that didn't get help yesterday. There's someone in a sober living home right now who had nowhere to go a month ago. And they're alive today because they have a chance. And not only are they alive, but sometimes the underlooked. And when I wrote my first book, and I could tell you, and I didn't know this came from literally all over the world, messages I got. And people realize the forgotten loved ones. People are so focused on, he or she, they are struggling, and they're having a hard time. But what about those like me? And we're sitting there, I don't know what to do. I tried so hard. Now they're gone. Now what do I do? I went from one day, pretty as normal as I'll ever be, to waking up the next day, literally, now what do I do? I just spent 6 years. And my life was consumed by it. Again, I know I'm, as they say, preaching to the choir a little bit. Some of you know what this is like. But here's what's important. When we know what can happen, when we have to deal with the terrible things that do happen sometimes, for you sitting here dealing with that, I'm sorry. I know what it feels like, and I know how hard it is. But from that, we can do something. We can make it better for the next one. We don't have to lose them all. We won't save them all. It won't happen. But we can close the gaps. We can say, like today, someone doesn't have to wait any longer to get help. And this is not about giving the system or anything the hard time. The system, all big systems, especially government systems, they're all slow to move. We all know that. But there's pieces we can do to make it a little bit better. Tonight, you took your hard-earned money, you took your valuable time, and you showed up. And you showed up to somewhere that mattered. Do you know there's people who will be alive next year because you're here tonight? Think about that. So, I won't go on too much further. My son Zach is gone a little over 3 years ago now, and he's not coming back. I know that. And I wrote in one of the books, I remember when I wrote it and I read back, and I thought about it for a bit, and I was doing an interview, and someone said to me, well, why do you write books? Why? And I really didn't have an answer. I just felt that's something I needed to do. But then, it hit me what I had written sometime previous. If it helps only one, then it'll be worth the effort.